Hi folks, my name is Tim Forshey, and in case you've been living under a rock for the last few months, you're probably aware that the ATF has now finally announced the final version of their new pistol brace regulations. I've been probably getting 10 to 15 calls before lunch the last several days about this, so let's try to get to the heart of the matter and set some issues straight as best we can. First of all, a little history is required. Can anyone possibly explain how in the year 2023 short-barreled rifles even still need to be under the auspices of the National Firearms Act at all? Because they're too concealable? One of the criteria that ATF is now relying upon is weight. The heavier the gun, the less pistolish the gun is. But doesn't that in turn then make it less concealable, which is the reason they're on the registry in the first place? And don't even get me started about silencers and why they still need to be required to be registered. Anyway, back to reality. About a decade ago, the ATF approved a company called SB Tactical's design of a firearm stabilizing brace, which would assist disabled veterans in shooting rifles one-handed. In order to better balance the firearm to shoot it one-handed, a shorter barrel, less than the 16 inches mandated by the National Firearms Act of 1934, was then required. This, of course, would otherwise violate the NFA, so SB Tactical submitted this design for approval, which was, once again, approved in the year 2012. In reliance upon this approval, numerous companies in the industry began producing millions of these brace pistols for legal sale all over the country. 3 years later, in 2015, the ATF nonsensically clarified their previously clear explanation by stating that these guns thus configured were legal, but if the gun were to be shouldered and fired, that would in essence serve to remake or redesign the gun into a short-barreled rifle. The industry, justifiably and predictably, went into an absolute uproar about the capriciousness of this ruling. In order to quell the hordes of people with pitchforks and torches, the ATF in 2017 followed that letter up with another clarification letter stating that what they determined to be incidental, sporadic, or situational use of an arm brace as a shoulder stock did not constitute a redesign after all, and thus would once again not fall under the purview of the NFA. There you go, clear as mud, right? Which now brings us to 2022 and 2023. Yikes. It is estimated that somewhere between 3 million, which is ATF's low-end estimate, and 40 million, which is the National Sports Shooting Federation's high-end number, of these guns have been sold to law-abiding American gun owners all over the country since the year 2012. Again, somewhere between 3 and 40 million of these items. And I'm sure as anybody watching this video has now heard, ATF has now ruled that most, and when they say most, basically it means all, braced pistols are once again short-barreled rifles under the National Firearms Act. This is known as Rule 2021R-08F. F stands for final. By the way, this document is 291 pages, and yours truly has actually gone through it and read it. Wow, I'll never get that 7 hours of my life back. Technically, the ATF has issued guidelines via what they call Worksheet 4999, setting forth minute and arcane guidelines to establish whether your particular firearm is a Title I pistol with a brace or a Title II short-barreled rifle. Such factors as eye relief of the optic, the length of pull of the arm brace, the weight of the gun, etc., are all to be tallied via a point system in order to make that determination. Make sure your algebra skills are well honed, boys and girls, and strap in because it is confusing. And lest ye get your hopes up, the latest ruling also specifically states that ATF reserves the right to preclude any classification as a brace pistol if ATF later feels that the gun has been used or has been configured in an attempt to circumvent the NFA. In other words, it really doesn't matter what you believe in good faith about the ATF's ruling on this point because, shall we say, they seem to be a bit wishy-washy and untrustworthy in this. The Bureau reserves the right to ruin your life just the same, no matter whether you have a good faith belief or not. Rest assured, several organizations out there are already preparing lawsuits to fight the constitutionality of this nonsense on both Second Amendment grounds as well as on the grounds that this new rule violates the Administrative Procedures Act and violates the Separation of Powers Clause of the U.S. Constitution. Unfortunately, these suits and any other legislative assistance that may spawn by that will almost undoubtedly require many months, more likely years, in order to wend their way through the federal jurisprudence system. So, what are your options? First of all, let's talk about what we're actually talking about. This item right here is a short-barreled rifle. This is registered with the NFA branch. You can see that the chamber's clear. This is a gun that has a barrel length of less than 16 inches and an overall length of less than 26 inches. Now, some of you are saying it looks longer. That's because there's a suppressor attached to it that requires a separate registration process, a separate tax stamp. This would be known as a two-stamp gun. One stamp required because it's a short-barreled rifle, one stamp required because it also has a suppressor attached. So this is a short-barreled rifle, and once registered, it's on the National Registry forever as an NFA item. Buying this requires a lengthy background check, fingerprints, photographs, a 6 to 12 month wait, and $400 worth of taxes to the federal government. Why do people want brace pistols instead? This is not a Title II firearm. This is a Title I braced pistol. It operates almost exactly the same way because it's the same basic firearm. They're both basically AR-15s. This also has a barrel of about the same length as this one, but since this is configured with what's called a pistol brace, you'll notice that this actually folds out. It's designed to be fired one-handed, like this. As a result of ATF's rulings that was allowed, millions of people have decided to just buy a gun and set it up this way, as opposed to going through all the hoops and the expense of doing it this way. You can see the obvious attraction. Quicker, cheaper, exact same end. By the way, anybody that jumps through all the hoops to do this way or this way is almost undoubtedly a law-abiding gun owner. So I'm not really sure what we're doing to make the world safer by limiting these over these, but be that as it may, apparently I'm not in charge. So if you have one of these and you need to deal with the fact that the ATF now says it's legally one of these, you have 6 options in terms of what you're going to do to solve the problem. Number 1 is ignore all of this, leave your braced pistol as is, and run the risk of a federal felony conviction with up to 10 years in prison and a fine of $250,000. Not my favorite option. Number 2, you can remove the offending brace and arguably destroy it so that it can't be reattached to the weapon, which leaves the rest of the gun as is. By the way, this is the part that's capable of hurting people, so I'm not really sure what that does to help the situation, but be that as it may. Even though it makes no sense at all, it is an option. By the way, expect a large spike in tennis ball sales across the country for people that choose option 2. Option 3, replace your short barrel with a 16-inch or longer barrel. Unless you already have a legally stamped short-barreled rifle that upper can readily go on, this would then leave you in possession with the contraband component of an SBR, which allows you to easily reconfigure that part into a contraband, non-stamped SBR, right back where we started, or was it that we ended up so confusing? That's option 3. Option 4, you can destroy the entire firearm. ATF will explain to you how you do that. Basically, you probably want to use a chop saw. You have to chop through the serial number. You're basically cutting the gun up and disposing of it. If you do choose that option, make sure you video yourself doing it with close-ups of the serial number being destroyed and keep a copy of that video. Option 5 is surrender the firearm to your local ATF office. I just have this image in my mind of millions of people walking to downtown Phoenix and going into the ATF office building carrying a newly designated contraband SBR. I'm not sure. Option 6, which is the one I'm probably going to pursue, is you can complete an ATF Form 1 application and then legally convert your Title I handgun into a Title II SBR. The new rule allows a 120-day amnesty period commencing January 13th, which would of course then end on or about April 13th, 2023, during which brace pistols are not yet considered SBRs, no arrests will be made, and the customarily required $200 transfer tax is actually waived. So you can look at this as the silver lining of the cloud is now you can upgrade to an SBR and it won't cost you the $200. Some sources on the internet have stated that your NFA trust can take possession of this newly registered SBR, but only if it was owned by the trust prior to January 13th of 2023. Well, I myself have read the actual 291-page ruling, and I cannot for the life of me find that language anywhere in there, and it makes no sense to me. How could someone add a Title I handgun to their NFA trust, and how would the ATF have even approved it when it's a Title I firearm? It was not regulated as an item that goes under the NFA until this new ruling. So to me, the best option out of the 6 bad options is the least bad option. For me, that's number 6. Register the gun, take advantage of the free stamp while supplies last. I'm going to submit a Form 1 application to add my brace pistols to my NFA trust ASAP, and I suggest that you do the same. Don't forget, since this legally constitutes your manufacture of a new firearm, the receiver of that new gun must be engraved with the name and address of the manufacturer. That will be you or your trust or your corporation. And if someone can please point me to this exact language that supposedly states that we can't use our trust to do this, I would truly be eternally grateful because I can't find it. If you don't already have an NFA trust, please go to ACCCW online and inquire there, and we'll crank one out for you post-haste. This will allow you to pass your newly registered SBR to your heirs without exposing them to legal prosecution when you die, as well as it will also allow your trusted fellow responsible persons to share and use the item in the trust without fear of prosecution for accidental possession. Thanks for tuning in. We'll keep you posted as updates occur, but this is the best we can do to sort this out at this time. Good luck.